Let's talk about the relationship between access structures and navigation. Access structures, we'll say, are the underlying organizational mechanisms that allow us to make information findable, usable, retrievable by either end users or the managers of the information. Navigation, on the other hand, we'll define as the set of, I like to call them widgets. A widget is like a little device, it's a little mechanical device. The set of widgets, the set of vignettes, the set of areas on the screen, controls, functions, you might call them all of those things. The set of those, and I'll use the term widgets, the set of widgets that expose the access structures to the end user. So let's look at the most familiar example, a book. A book has a set of navigation structures. It has a table of contents that allows you to navigate your way through the book. It has a set of page numbers. Those page numbers also let you navigate your way through the book. It has headings at the tops of the, headers and footers at the tops and bottoms of pages that also help you navigate. It has an index that also helps you navigate. Those are the various navigational widgets that are present in a book. Of course, a website has a lot of navigational widgets as well. We have menus and lists and links and all sorts of things that allow us to navigate around the website. So the navigation is the user interface. The navigation is the way that we've exposed the structure of the information to the end user. Now, access structures lie behind those navigational structures and are used to create the navigational structures. Access structures come first. They're the structure of the information, and navigational widgets are the way that we've exposed that information. And here comes the other white one. This is Peter. Peter, say hello. And so we have these two white cats. Okay, so let's think about the word navigation for a moment. And I think it's worth a couple of minutes of time to talk about the word navigation and why we came up with that particular phrase to designate this idea of working your way or finding information. I want you to think about it because now you're practicing to be an architect, and the architect looks behind the superficial terms. I don't want you to accept that term navigation as a given. I want you to look back and peel away its layers and see all the implications of that and decide for yourself whether it's the way that you want to represent this concept of access. Access, I'll say, is the fundamental concept. It's getting to the information. Navigation is a way that we came up with, and specifically really on the web. We didn't really talk about navigating a book so much. You can back propagate the concept to a book, but we really never talked about navigating a book. In fact, a lot of the concepts that we talk about now were definitely present in the print era, but they didn't become concepts. They were just like the air we breathe when everything was print, because there weren't various methods of presenting information. And at that point, we just took for granted that a table of contents was a table of contents, and we never saw behind that to the wider concept that could be played out in many ways besides a table of contents, because we only really played it out in one way. Okay, so the topic at hand is the metaphor of navigation. The metaphor of navigation is that we move through cyberspace to get to the information that we want, that we surf the web, that we go to pages, that we are moving, that we're going through this topography, this geography of information, going from place to place inside the information, stopping over at sites and then moving on to other sites, right? That's the metaphor. That's the way that we've come to think about the way that we find information on the web. And I want you to turn that over in your mind just for a few minutes. It's not really the point of this class to look at the navigational metaphor, but I want to pause here for a moment and give you a chance to reveal that to yourself, to think about it, and to have that as something that's in the back of your mind. We're using navigation, we're using this metaphor of geography and motion through geography to represent finding information. Are there other ways to represent finding information? Is navigation what you want at all times? And at the very least, to understand that navigation is what's going on behind the scenes and what's kind of the idea inside someone's mind. So let me give you one other metaphor that I think may be really quite a bit more apt, and not that I expect that we're going to overthrow the notion of navigation, but I want to put in your mind the idea that you can think of other ways to represent this idea of access besides the standard navigational one where we have motion. Okay, so suppose we thought of finding information like a restaurant. You come into the restaurant, you sit down at your table, you come into your room, you sit down at your computer, and you order. You make a request. You say, I would like this kind of information. And there's a server. There's someone who comes to you and says, what kind of information would you like? The server is the information system that you're accessing over the web. You make a request of that server from a menu. In fact, that metaphor plays out very nicely, from a menu of choices. And from that menu of choices, you make your request. The server goes back into the kitchen, sees if they have it, and brings it back to you. Notice, you're very passive in that. You're sitting at a table, you're making a request, that request is filled. All the activity is on the part of the server. Now imagine that that kitchen is a vast kitchen and it could have any kind of food you want. And depending on what you order, you could really come back with lots of different things. However, your order is never fulfilled exactly precisely what you ordered. So you order Rogan Josh, say, an Indian dish. And the server goes back into the kitchen and pulls out every kind of Rogan Josh that is possible that they have in the shelves. None of them exactly the one that you had thought, that you had in your mind when you made that request. So this idea of going to a restaurant, being served information rather than traveling through the information, is an alternative way of thinking about that access experience. So I want you to be able to think of the metaphors that we've come up with, understand them as metaphors, understand that they're just metaphors, and understand that you, the architect, are in control of the way that the finding experience is structured. And we're still so early in this electronic world of finding information that you really do still have the opportunity to affect the metaphors that people use to understand how they navigate, to understand how they access information.